This is the Loaded Radio Podcast.
All right, we're back here for another edition of the Loaded Radio Podcast. It's good to be back. Hey, it's Scott Penfold here with you. And what a way to come back to. I was going to be speaking to Asking Alexandria vocalist Danny Worsnop this week. Now, the band have the new album arriving August 25th called Where Do We Go From Here? And I have heard the record from front to back, and it's a great piece of work courtesy of Worsnop, along with lead guitarist Ben Bruce, drummer James Cassells, rhythm guitarist Cameron Liddell, and bassist Sam Bettley. Now, the album drops via Better Noise Music, and it's a straight-up Asking Alexandria album. So everything that you've come to love and admire about the band, you can expect with the new release. Now, before we talk to Danny, just want to remind you, if you are listening to this podcast via YouTube, please give us a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, or do both if you like, as it really does help. But if you are listening via Spotify, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, the Loaded Radio app, or via loadedradio.com, or any of those channels, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the interview. So joining us right here now and live on the podcast is the one and only vocalist for Asking Alexandria, Danny Worsnop. Danny, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us this week on the podcast, man.
Absolutely.
I had the chance to listen to the album myself, and man, I got to say, it is a strong release, and I'm really excited for what this album's going to do for you guys.
Thank you.
I wanted to break down some of the tracks, particularly more of the singles. What can you tell me about the song Psycho? Where did that song originate from?
An easy way is to kind of start at the top. This album was written to be a kind of synopsis of everything that has been, and a collection of everything we've done over the years put into one place. So that song was the kind of big, bombastic, tongue-in-cheekish, kind of fun jump up and down rock song. The Anti-Socialist, the Where Did It Go? So that was kind of the thought process and the instigator of that. Was to be a representative of those moments.
Now, I see you worked with producer Matt Good once again on this album. Why work with Matt?
He's done our last 3 records. Really, really good friend of ours.
Would you consider him almost like a member of the band? Is there a tightness there, a good kinship with him?
Yeah, I mean, we've been friends for a very long time before he was producing us, and indeed before he was producing it all. He's the guy from First to Last, who we took on tour. He was in Drugs, who we took on tour. So we've known him for, oh God, it's got to be 12, 13 years now. Yeah. He's very much a friend before a producer.
Another track I wanted to ask you about was Bad Blood, a great song. I personally like Bad Blood a lot. What can you tell me about the origination of that song?
I mean, I think that one's very clearly to people. That one's a very strong reference to the early work when it was a lot of screamy loud stuff.
Yeah.
So that was, I mean, it has the big kind of pop R&B influence, arena rock stuff as well within kind of a little bit within the verses. But yeah, that was definitely a screamer, which was important to have on the album. I mean, it would be ridiculous of us for us to say that it was an album that represents everything that's been over the last 15 years without doing that stuff as well. So that was kind of the quote unquote heavy moments, which I have no idea what that word means. I will say that on the record. People argue with me. I don't know what heavy is or means, and I am a very, very firm believer that no one else does either.
You don't consider Asking Alexandria a heavy band?
It's the heaviest band in the world, and simultaneously not heavy at all. Heavy doesn't mean anything. It's a word that people use, and I don't think anyone knows what it means. They have their own scale of it. So it's a unit of measurement that cannot be quantified. So it isn't real. It's a way for people to say that isn't heavy. It's like, what is heavy? What makes something? Don't even just describe what makes something heavy, because they can't.
Well, I guess it's really a relative term, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a way of complaining about something.
I do want to talk about Dark Void as well. Where did that one come from?
I mean, that one's got radio single written all over it. It still has those heavy aspects as well, though, which is kind of why we went with it as a first song, because it did touch on those early years, which I know people have complained in the past that we tout that there's something, I'm going to use the buzzword again, there's something heavy on the record. Right. And then we put something out and it's got a bit of heavy in it. So we didn't want to go with the heavier one first, but we did want to show it off to people to get people excited and show people what's to come, which is then when we followed it with Bad Blood. But yeah, that's, I mean, honestly, that song as a whole by itself kind of touches on everything we've done. It's probably a pretty solid showcase song for what the album is.
Yeah, and certainly it came out of the gate with that. I think it really did make a good impression for what you can expect with the album. I think it was a perfect song to lead out with.
Yeah, and I mean, subject-wise, well, obviously with the exception of Psycho, which is, that very kind of tongue-in-cheek thing.
Sure.
Subject-wise, everything the same as sonically. It's we took into account everything we've talked about in the past that people that have that's resonated with people. Obviously, moments in time and things that were not so much in the early work, but things I was writing about that were thoughts I was having at the time. We thought it was important to pinpoint those moments and be like, cool, that's what we're going to use as subject matter for these. It wasn't written as a personal album, and that was by design because it was supposed to be a reflection of what was before.
And that kind of leads me into my next question. 8 albums in now. Has the way the band created music, I mean, obviously this is your 7th with the band. I mean, is the way that the band created music, has it evolved, or is it still the same process as it was back with album number 1?
This album was very different. Each album has been kind of an exploration.
Yeah.
Us allowing ourselves to just be creatives, be writers, and just explore what sounds and feels good to us at that particular time. The last album, especially, that was the most so because we did it together.
Yeah.
Over the last, with the exception of the first record, we work remotely. We don't see each other when we're making an album.
So Stand Up and Scream was done like together off the floor?
Yeah, because we didn't have enough money to work remotely. We didn't live anywhere.
Okay, got you.
We were all together, and then we all kind of moved to our respective homes, which are all in different states.
Right.
So we're not together because we can't stand to be in the room with each other. It's more so just we're victims of circumstance. Everyone can leave their families for a couple months to go make an album, or we can just make the album from our homes, and it's just easier that way. But we all got together for the last record. So that one was a very personal piece. That was just us wanting to make an album that we loved, and that was just an album for us. This one, by contrast, was very much going into it. It's like, cool, this isn't an album for us. This is just an album for the fans. So it made it a little bit easier in that regard, harder in some aspects, but easier because we now have a checklist of what the album needs and what the album has to consist of and what has to be featured within it. So we get to kind of go through that checklist, and it's like, cool, we know what we're missing instead of writing a bunch of songs and seeing what fits.
Understood. And really, I wanted to ask you about, your relationship with Ben Bruce. You guys have been working on essentially since 09, 08, 09, probably around there. 07 is really 07. Obviously, so a lot of ups and downs. Is there a tight kinship with you and Ben? Is it like a working relationship, or how is that relationship?
No, we're very close. I have this great character flaw that my friends absolutely love about me, where I don't keep in touch with people. So unless we're talking about business, I don't call people or text people. Right. I don't have time. So this conversation with you is longer than most of my conversations with my friends, unless they are in the room. So yeah, I'm from the outside. I imagine it'd be easy to see that I'm not close with Ben and the other guys, and indeed many people in my life. But in truth, that's my family. It's I don't have that intrinsic need to talk to people, to be close to them. But I'm also a little bit old school in that, like, I don't want to catch up on the phone. I don't want to talk about stuff because then we're going to see each other in person after not seeing each other for 6 months and have nothing to fucking talk about.
Right. Which can suck. It can be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, it's like I've not seen someone in a long time. I want to sit down and catch up. You can't do that if you've already been caught up over a phone. I
did want to bring up 2015 when you did vacate the band for a brief time. first off, why did you walk away from the band at that time?
There was a lot of mismanagement, a lot of neglect, and to be frank, a lot of abuse, both of power and of our naivety and our youth. It was a very negative environment. We were kept on the road permanently, despite what may have been going on in our personal lives, whether it was, personal issues or family issues or losses in family. That wasn't a good enough excuse to not do something. Mm-hmm. We were kept working 12 months a year, pretty much 365 days for years. And anytime, I remember multiple times we'd be getting off tour and we'd be going on to the next, we'd finishing a tour, driving to the next tour and talking about what tour we were going to do after that one. I'd be like, can we take like a month or two off? And we're told by the powers that be that existed with us at the time, who do not work with us anymore, if you take time off, all of this is over. Your career goes away. Everyone forgets about you. It's done. So you either keep working or you say goodbye to all of it. So we were manipulated really heavily, and being the very mature, emotionally adults that we were not, in that situation, you don't have coping methods. No one teaches you how to deal with that. That's because that's not a common life experience people run into.
No, certainly not.
So we didn't really have an outlet for that frustration, and we didn't even understand it. We were just locked inside this very small metal tube with each other, and all of that got taken out on each other. I remember it was maybe the 500th time being woken up in the middle of the night, people fist fighting in the bus and like in the bunks, getting kind of kicked through the bunks as people are fighting. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. This isn't fun. This doesn't feel good. This isn't what I signed up for. I would rather do not music at all than do this. So I walked away, and it was difficult. I called Ben and broke the news to him. He understood, and he told me then, he was like, listen, if and when the day comes that you want to come back, the door will always be open. If there's someone else standing there, we will remove them. That is not what happened when I came back. It already fired that guy, but it was definitely reassuring knowing that it was both understood and that they knew what I didn't, that I needed time away. I didn't need to walk away.
Well, you did obviously return almost 2 years later. Why did you return? Why make that decision?
I flipped a coin in a bar.
Is that really it?
Yeah, I got. They'd fired that other kid and had a tour booked. Yeah. So they'd reached out to me via, I forget if it was management or the record label at the time, who actually like called me about it. Well, I think it was our manager, Dione, and was asking me if I'd be interested in doing the tour, not rejoining the band, not anything, just doing the tour. Yeah. Because obviously, I mean, there was a thing of like, it'll do huge numbers. People be freaking out about it. Yeah. But it was also all the songs, and honestly, if it isn't you, they're going to have to cancel the tour and figure out if the band continues or what the band's going to do. So I flipped a coin in a bar, and because he was on the phone with me and he was like, listen, we need to know now, because I've been putting it off. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? And there was a girl I was talking to, or a couple of girls I was talking to at the bar. I was like, do any of you have a coin? And we flipped the coin. I was like, I'm in. And I hung up. Huh. Really? I was like, what was that? I was like, I think I just rejoined Asking Alexandria.
So Asking Alexandria is where it is today because of a coin toss, essentially.
Yes.
Oh, wow, man.
It is that coin's fault.
Well, yeah, of course. But I mean, in that time off, you had been working on some solo stuff. Do you still do some of your own solo stuff on the side? Do you still have a desire to do that kind of stuff? Yeah,
I mean, it's very much not a side thing for me. I do more of it than I do Asking Alexandria, if I'm honest. Yeah, I've been working on a new record for about 3 years now. Cool. It's taken on a lot of different forms, but I want it to be perfect, because this is obviously a lot more personal to me than, a collaborative thing with 4 other people. Right. It's all me. I'm writing everything, I'm playing everything, I'm producing everything. So it's a lot easier for me to get lost in trying to tweak everything and chase the perfection of it, which I'll never find. After over 20 years making music now, you'd think I would have learned that lesson, but I haven't.
Right.
But I'm getting there. I have, I think, 4 or 5 that I'm like, yes, they're done. So my plan is to start releasing that in January. And if all goes well, I'm just going to release a song every month through next year, and then cap the year out with a hard copy with another 12 songs.
I see. Okay, so it's going to be like releasing one track per month.
One track a month, and then at the end of the year, it'll be a 24-track album that comes out.
And it's, again, looking at the modern day, the way the music's being distributed or being consumed, is it because of that you're choosing to do it that way, or is it simply just you want to take your time?
There's a few reasons. One, it's definitely the way social media is the centerpiece of music business now.
Seems to be.
Obviously, capturing people's attention requires a lot more work than it used to.
Yeah.
Or not capturing, but maintaining attention. Just because there's so much going on. That's a new thing, a new thing, a new thing, a new thing. What was 4 things ago? We don't know.
Exactly.
It's difficult to hold a place and kind of break through the noise. So that was one part of it. The other part is I get to kind of feel what's working, what isn't, what people are liking, what people aren't, because I'm not going to be putting together that final track list probably until next September. Okay. So I'm going to have a solid 9 releases before then to gauge what's working and what isn't, to figure out exactly what that final album should be. It also lets me just play with different things.
Yeah, well, I mean, is it genre specific, or are you just sort of all over the place with it? Does it sound like Asking Alexandria, or like what exactly is it?
Nothing like Asking Alexandria.
Really?
It's nothing like my first 2 records either. It's largely been piano based as of right now. There's definitely a lot of pop in there. There's some blues. There's a bit of rock, but largely it's not going to have a rock label on it. And I'm not a huge lover of touring, so I won't be touring it that much, which is another reason why I'll be releasing more often, because I won't be following that up with, here are my tours for the year. It'll be like, I'm doing 1 a year.
Right.
And I will be going to the places I go to. It won't be like, this is the US tour, this is the Europe tour, it'll be, no, here's the month I'm going to be gone, and that is all of the shows. It's very much an online-based career.
Well, first off, before I get to my next question, what is your creative process as an artist for like your songwriting? Is it simply like sitting down at the edge of your bed with a guitar and just seeing what comes out? Or is it like little bits and pieces in your phone? Like, what is it for you as a creative artist what's your process?
It's a little bit of everything.
Is it?
Sometimes I have, I think any songwriter worth the salt has a pinned note in his phone that's just full of one-liners.
Sure.
Either stuff you've heard, or stuff you've said, or stuff someone said to you, or just a thought you've had. And that one-liner it might just be 2 words, and it might be a song title.
Yeah.
And that's just something that you dig into, and maybe one day you have a melody, and one of those one-liners finds its way onto that melody, and you go from there. Very often I sit down at the piano. Is usually how anything starts. Sometimes the guitar, but usually piano. And I just play around until I find some chords that sound nice, and I just keep playing around until a melody comes, and it all starts falling out from there.
Now, my next question to you, and it's one that I've been asking a lot of the artists I've been talking to recently, is with this new inclusion of AI into now getting into music, getting into pretty much everything. What are your thoughts on AI invading music as a creative outlet?
I have not explored it at all as of this time. I'm a photographer also, and I've utilized aspects of it within my photography, and it's sped up my workflow, and it can be used creatively. It can be used as a crutch, and people will always find ways to abuse stuff like that and take advantage of it and kind of use it to bypass doing the actual process. Mm-hmm. but ultimately they don't end up with a product that's as good, or a piece of art that's as good. So I'm not opposed to the AI thing. I don't think it has its place in like writing a lyric. I mean, it could help. It can help you with like, hey, this is a rhyme pattern that could work. Sure, yeah, like help come up with maybe something you didn't think of. I would love for it to come along and do mixing for me. Now, the mixers out there will hate that I said that, but I am not a good mixer. So if I had a plugin that was an AI-based mixer that just did all of the mix for me and it was passable,
yeah,
amazing. That'll save me hours. I would still from there hire a professional to do it before releasing it. But I then have a product where it's like, cool, I can sit down. I have my studio all wired in to where I can just pick up an instrument and start playing.
Yeah.
Or push record and start singing, and I'm good. There's no like messing around with finding sounds and any of that other stuff. So if I also have a thing where like as soon as I'm done with the idea, I'll push a button and it sounds right. Awesome. That just speeds up my process. I can be on to the next thing. Yeah, I'm not opposed to the AI thing. I think it just needs to be, people can't let it do the art for you. It's a tool. A plugin is all of the digital interfaces and stuff we have now. You can make an album on a laptop now, and you show that to people in the 60s. Well, no, because they would have loved it. You show that to people in like during the 90s and even early 2000s, people would be freaking out because they've spent all of this time and there's so much soul and so much artistry in recording in analog, and you've now just stripped all of it away. You've taken away all of that skill set. So there's always that pushback. And as long as you don't lose the art in the advancement, you're good.
In keeping with authenticity when it comes to live performance, what are your feelings on bands using backing tracks or backing tapes while doing live shows?
It's fine. I think it's obviously become a really hot topic as of late. With people, I think it was Eddie going off on Ronnie Radke about stuff. But ultimately, you like listen to that band and listen to my band. A great deal of the sounds and the instrumentation that you're hearing are not a guitar, a bass, or a drum kit. And very often, none of those other three instruments are playing. So it's the other sounds, like which would be, backing tracks and playback and things. If that wasn't going, you're just getting silence. You're just getting 16 or 32 bars of nothing. Just the stage goes, silent for a verse? Mm-hmm. And then that verse is a cappella now because it's live? No, that's ridiculous. People are out of their fucking minds. It allows you to play so much more and add so much more atmosphere and so much more in terms of layers and amusement. The people who complain about it, I would love for them to keep that principle when it comes to albums, to be like, don't put anything on an album that you cannot play live. Cool. And I don't mean like nothing you aren't able to perform. Nothing you can perform at the same time. You can't, if your band has one guitarist, you can't have two guitars going. You can't have the chords going and a guitar solo anymore. You get to pick. You can have one or the other. I don't want to hear vocal harmonies if all of your band can't fucking sing them. I'm sorry. Take out all of that orchestra stuff you have playing. I get you aren't going to do it live, but you can't do it on the album either, unless you're taking an orchestra on tour. Every tour. I'm
going to finish up with 3 quick fan questions that were sent in to us. First one, have you ever considered doing material from the 2016 album The Black with the band?
No.
No? Okay. Second question. Who are you listening to right now?
Right now, you. I'm listening to your wonderful voice.
As in music-wise?
Music-wise, it's been a little bit varied. I've been trying to find some new stuff. Teddy Swims is incredible. Kendall Inskeep, amazing. Those two have been in really heavy rotation. Adele, John Mayer, they're always in my rotation. If it's got a piano and a pretty vocal and it sounds really sad, I'm into it.
Cool. A third question is, do you consider the Asking Alexandria still falls under the metalcore banner?
No, and I never did. I don't know what that is.
You don't like the subgenre thing?
Yeah, I don't know what it means. There's so many, and I have no clue what any of them are. Like, what is it? It's we're a rock band. It's not overcomplicated. We make music.
There you go.
We're musicians. We're musicians. We're artists. That's what we do. We don't need to put a label on anything.
Agreed, man. It's all about the listening experience, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danny, so much for your time, man, and we'll see you out there on the road. Looking forward to it.
Got it.
And that's Danny Worsnop, lead vocalist for Asking Alexandria. The name of the 8th studio album, which arrives August 25th, is Where Do We Go From Here? And a solid release, and everything you're going to love, and everything you already do love about Asking Alexandria, you can expect on the new album, okay? Don't forget to check out loadedradio.com for all your hard rock and metal news. That's updated on a 24/7 basis, always being updated with what's going on in hard rock and metal. Also, the 24-hour radio station /stream, which is there too, featuring a niche programming, live personalities 24/7, and tons of hard rock and metal. As well, you can download the Loaded Radio app. It's completely free, where you can get the stream, all your news to your device, and past episodes of this very podcast, okay? I want to send out thanks to, of course, Danny Worsnop from Asking Alexandria and Paul Cormack from Better Noise Music. So have yourself a great one. We'll be back again next week, right here on an all-new edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. Have a good one.
Loaded Radio.